All right, let's try that again. I appreciate your patience and kindness on that. What's going on, everyone? Jordan, Conquer Trading and Investing, getting ready here for our live session, discuss everything that's going on, figure out a best plan of action here. Just going to give everyone a couple of minutes because of those technical difficulties to get up in the room. Round two. Right? It's just a question of getting back up. All right. So, first of all, hope everyone is doing well. Glad to be in here with you. Excited for this session to get into it with you. That being said, let's figure out now what's going on. Futures are opening mixed right here. All right. They've been up yesterday during Asia, down heavily during Europe. Germany came in and they said that they were going to go ahead and be easing a little bit, right? No limits on loans. That sent the futures up. So the futures, as we enter into New York in about 25 minutes, are slightly up. Donald Trump is speaking tonight. He's speaking at 6 o'clock Eastern time to talk about how the fake news is going ahead and they are basically talking up the coronavirus in order to send stocks down and hurt his chances of getting re-election. Now, here's the thing. Everyone here knows that we've been watching the outbreak from day one, and we were kind of wondering why the news wasn't talking about it. So the fact that yesterday the news, I can't side with President Trump on this one at all. As a matter of fact, I think he's making a big mistake by not going out of his way to make sure that the U.S. is prepared as possible by saying everything will be blown over by April. That could backfire on him. And if things escalate, rightfully so, it will backfire on him. Extend that channel down over here. See if that's where we found support. Maybe we bounce over here. I'm getting a lot. Let's start. So obviously we're going to be watching this morning. I guess what I'm going to be watching here is if we actually sell off again. Yesterday we opened up higher. We opened up higher yesterday, and we noted that if we sell off, it's a bad sign. Not only did we sell off, we sold off. Let's see what happens today. Things look to be escalating. We had in Brazil the first reported case in Latin America of the coronavirus. This person had caught the virus from Italy. Situation in Italy continues to escalate. A couple more deaths in France. I think the CDC yesterday, Jesse in the Telegram provided the CDC update for yesterday. And I believe they said it's going to be a couple more weeks before they get the test kits into the United States. Only 400 and something people have been tested for the virus inside the United States. And I wonder if most of those people were the people that came back from Wuhan and from the Princess Diamond cruise ship in Japan, meaning nobody has been tested inside the United States. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. We might see cases start escalating there. We have the Swiss franc, again, the strongest currency of the day, followed by the weakest is the British pound, a little bit of pressure on the pound. We see that so far, US dollar, Japanese yen is holding this area of the broken trend line, and it's holding so far as support. Let's see what happens today. If the markets sell off, what happens there? All right, let's start digging in. Yeah, Blair, if the government says it's fine, I'm sure it's fine. You have nothing to worry about. I'm sure everything's okay. And yeah, just every other country around Indonesia has the virus. There's one thing that I do know for sure, though, that I am certain that Blair, you are doing everything needed to protect yourself. I think the best plan of action as the virus hits any of our areas is self isolation, right? So obviously, everyone needs to have food and water and any needed medication, and self isolation is the safest way to protect yourself here. Uh, we all have family. Um, the good news is that the children are not really being affected, or so it seems. The bad news is the elderly is. All right. So I'm interested to see what happens on the open here. I noticed that it seems to me that over the last couple of days, that when the equities sell off, euro catches a bid, and vice versa. I've seen it overnight, all night, as the futures have been back and forth. Interesting correlation. How many days do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4 down days. This is the futures. Move over to the euro. 1, 2, 3. So these 3 days here, we've had this tight correlation. You see it happening here. That's unusual. That's unusual. So I mean, what I make of it, what I gather from it, that whatever flows we're seeing in the stock market right now are somehow obviously affecting the euro. And I can't get into the specifics of it, the details of it, because I don't know them. I don't understand them, but I definitely see the correlation happening. All right. Bitcoin in a little bit of trouble here. If it closes below this level over here today, you could expect some further pressure on it. You could see that ever since it broke this trend line, there's the retest up here. There's been a little bit of pressure. Again, we're at the end of February, so we are a couple of months, a little over 2 months away from the halving. My price prediction for well over a year now, year and a half, has been the price at halving will be 11,400. Now, that's not to say Bitcoin can't catch a huge bid. That's not to say it couldn't trade up to $16,000 before the halving, and then receive a 30% drawdown, which is going to happen often, and hit that $11,400 mark within a month, 30 days after the halving. But my model price is 11,400. We're very close to it. I look at any opportunities here. If we do fail over here, if we resume off of here, it's a great place to position in. It's a great place to position in. If we fall back down, come down in towards between 85 and 82, I think that's the lowest we'll get in this cycle. And that is a place to really look to get a nice position in. Let's see what happens today. It's a big day for Bitcoin. So I don't think, Blair, I've seen, that's a great question. I've seen that happen in, a lot of people. I think it was even CNBC or it could have been CNN. We're talking about that. I don't think Bitcoin is a safe haven asset at all. I think it's an uncorrelated asset. It's uncorrelated to anything else, which is one of the huge advantages of it. I think Bitcoin focuses in on its own cycle. And Bitcoin is actually 100% right now, according to the stock to flow model by Plan B, fair valued. This is exactly the price that it should be at today. I don't think Bitcoin is a safe haven asset at all, but you also do notice gold is a safe haven asset, and we've seen gold tick off a little bit as well. And there could be a multitude of reasons for this. First of all, gold is still up huge on the year and over the last 12 months. Second of all, this sell-off was coming off of a huge run-up, right? So this is just a little bit of a pullback. And even though you're seeing that huge risk off, you're seeing, the Swiss franc play its role. Gold, you've seen some high volume in the last couple of days on the paper side of the market, and sometimes those central banks, they just come in and they just shoot it down. It's that beach ball theory though. You can't keep it underwater. So I don't think Bitcoin's a safe haven asset at all. I know there were times when during the geopolitical drama going on with Iran, Bitcoin was pumping during those times. I don't know that it had any type of correlation as being a risk off asset. I personally do not consider it one. Australian dollar, Swiss franc, and New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc. I have 2 positions on, and I want to just start here on the monthly. First I wanted to check out was the crisis lows. All right. They're way up there. I believe this is when the Swiss franc lost the peg. This move down here must be. We're kind of in no man's land right now, right? Once we took out this area of support at 0.6542, we're kind of now in no man's land. And as long as this current environment, just take a bigger picture view here. It seems to me now we're at a tipping point here for the coronavirus, and I don't see things getting better before they get worse at this point. Right? So where's that bid to safety? It's almost as if I'm short here. Let me look at with you where I have to worry about being wrong, right? Where I want to get off my position. So the first thing I could do is extend this little bit of a trend line over here, right? Stay below that. I can stay short with ease. The other thing I could do is over here, I have this low or the high of today's bar even, right? As long as we stay below, the first warning signal would be if we started making a higher high than today's high. Second would be coming across this. Similar situation for the New Zealand dollar, Swiss franc, except this looks worse. Let me extend that down. It's a little bit of a guide. Let me jump down to the monthly here. Down here around 0.584, right? We've touched that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Does it look like if the current situation persists that we're going to come down there again? It does. It does look like that. And then what, is there a possibility that even finally gives way? And then what happens below there? I in this type of environment, I think any rallies we see will be short term. My greater question is what's going to happen with the yen? It seems like the Swiss franc is going to continue. That's what it seems like to me. Opposing viewpoints or opinions, please do share, because that's the most important thing to look at is the opposing side. I mean, Jesse, that's what it looks like to me. Um, you know, that's what it looks like to me. It is trading after all. Nothing's a given. Nothing's easy. That's for certain. Um, and yeah, it looks like it's going to touch at least. Is there a chance that it goes lower? Depends what happens here. This is shaping up and looking like a sincere black swan event. Now you all know that when it first started occurring, we're all tracking it pretty heavily, and then I sincerely tried to give it the benefit of the doubt and hope that things were gonna recover, but it looks like things are actually escalating, and I don't know how well the world economy could take it. Obviously, what looks like it's going to happen, it looks like the Fed is going to start cutting rates. Probably start off slow and then come down fast and hard. They're going to be doing QE. The central banks are going to do everything they could. But what happens if that doesn't work this time? What happens if that doesn't work this time? Image B, the and who is Steve has been selling the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Um, Look, what's interesting too is even with the dollar weakness here on the DXY, I don't even like looking at the DXY anymore because the DXY is really just mostly tracking the euro, of course, the Japanese yen as well. And I really want to talk about the Japanese yen today a lot. But even with this weakness here on the DXY, you've seen the dollar much stronger than the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar. They've broken important levels and they continue to bleed. Anytime we've seen a little bit of pump, they're not really recovering too much. Let's take a look here before we move further at the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. And for sure, we're coming in here, and the Australian dollar looks worse. So we'll get into that in a moment. For sure, we're coming into this area of supply over here on the New Zealand dollar. I'd be interested to see some volume. I must have the wrong indicator. Well, I'll figure that out when we're off live stream. We're coming into an area of supply over here. It's got work. That the issue becomes what happens if it busts through here. If we lose these levels, the bleeding could really start magnifying. All right. I would say right around there. If we lose this level, we're really in jeopardy here. Here's the crisis lows. We're not in a crisis right now. I mean, it seems like a crisis is potentially shaping up, but technically we're not in recession. Technically, nothing's breaking systematically yet. I mean, well, the Fed has been doing billions of dollars of repo for quite a while now. But we haven't seen any type of liquidity crisis. But it's not looking positive. I really tried to hold out hope here. I really did, monitoring the situation from the beginning. And then once it looked like they had the possibility of stabilizing, but now this looks like this could be a potential black swan event here for the market and the world economy. Nice MHB. I would love to see what if you could tell me the ticker. I'll pull up that index. I would like to look at it. So I think that we're going to see lower levels on the New Zealand dollar and on the Australian dollar. I honestly do. And I thought perhaps, we would have saw more of a bounce already that we haven't. They've taken out some important levels. Where's my Australian dollar? Once we took out this support over here, and don't forget, we're coming off this. Over here was when everything was looking so positive and so good, and things changed so quickly. Things changed so quickly, and now that we've taken out this strong area of support, we haven't even coming up and testing it. And I would not be hoping for a bounce. Hoping for the bounce was over here. This is all we got. This was the bounce. So right now, things do not look good. And clearly, and just keep it simple as possible. As long as you're below that broken support, things are very bad and ugly. Just keep it that simple, right? You can't look at a long until at the very least you're back above that support, and sometimes you have breakdowns and you never look back. So the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar do not look well right now. What's going on, Hanero? Hanero, we were talking about the dollar index here. We'll look at the euro then next. And so we've seen a few days now, finally, after after exploding towards the 100. We've seen a pullback here now. So far, this first area, I have that marked as resistance. So weird. This first area of support is holding. I'm looking first, and let me extend that blue line right here. I'm looking for a pullback into this pocket over here. I drew this trend line in today. That's the first area I'm looking to see. And that's not to say we even pull back to there. I'm hoping we pull back to here, right? We could hold here today. That would not be unreasonable. But I'm looking for a pullback into this pocket over here, and then looking to see how price reacts around there. If we lose this trend line over here, Hanero was talking about some lower levels. We were talking about 97.90 to 97.30. So here's 97.30 down here. That would be strong support over there. And 97.90. All right. That's a tighter level. Yeah. So if we lose this level over here, if we lose this trend line, assuming we come back and test it, if we lose this trend line, this is the first stop, 97.90, right where Hanero marked it. And then we got down here. I don't know that we'll pull back that far. Let's see what happens with the market. Again, it's been the euro, and speaking of the dollar index, it's been so tightly tied to the euro. It is so tightly tied to the euro. Here we have the euro. Look, I'm going to start on the 1 hour time frame just to show you this trend line that I'm tracking. All right. This is the trend line that I'm tracking over here. We break below it, and it looks like we're coming back down to test that big area of support that's so far held. This is not such strong resistance over here. You saw it on the DXY too. It's not strong resistance. The strong resistance comes up all the way up to here. So I know President Trump's speaking. I can't imagine the market's going to buy what he says today. Let's see what happens as we're getting close to that open right now, whether or not the market tries to rally a little bit here. And I do think any rally is going to wind up getting sold anyway. Or let's see if we, if they start hitting the sell trigger on the open over here. US dollar, Canadian dollar. Let me check her out. You comparing it to the other commodity currencies. I'm thinking to myself, that's something we should have really focused in on. When I remember us talking about the fact that the Canadian dollar was going to definitely outperform the other commodity currencies, the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar. Let me start on the daily. Yep. All right. So what I mean, what I'm expecting, and again, this is a very heated debate about whether or not the dollar strength is going to continue, or whether or not uh, you know the dollar is going to be just sold off so hard, and people are very passionate about both sides of that argument. And obviously, it's a question of timing. In the long run, of course, the dollar is going to devalue, but the dollar is everyone's debt is in dollars. Um, and as things break, everyone tends to go towards liquidity, and people need dollars. And I'm in the camp where we're going to see a stronger dollar, at least until things get bad and break, right? And here you could see that breakout of the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. Uh, I don't think things get bad until it clears this resistance up here. And that's more of a place that I might look to take advantage. I would like to have long dollar positions versus everything. Now, let's see. In the near term, though, the Canadian dollar is holding up. Now, oil, when we get to oil in just a second, looks like we could see much lower oil prices. We do have that OPEC meeting coming up, though. Ideally, getting another look down would be a safer place to position. But why we're in no man's land? Why we're in no man's land between this support and this resistance? I think it's far better to stay on the sidelines here right now. This pair is not moving, and it's currently battling it out. Let's look at oil, because we're losing some important levels here. This makes a ton of sense with what's happening right now, obviously, with the slowdown now affecting more areas. And hold on. It looks $45. Beyond that, $40. It looks like we're going to be seeing much lower oil prices. Now, DJ, man, you're short from all the way up here. Trade of the year. All right. So far, markets are up. That means the euro is down. Let's see if that trend line's holding or breaking. I would like to get into the Japanese yen and figure out what's going to happen here longer term. And what we saw over these last few days with the market selling off, that the yen in the time of distress, it played its role as a safe haven currency, right? And even though we had this breakout over here, it was under different circumstances. and we've been seeing definitely that yen action of safe haven currency in times of distress. And to be honest, I think we're going to see further distress. So if this breakout fails over here, and for me, for the breakout to be considered a failure, it has to take out this support over here, which I have down at 109.71. Remember this area when it was just in a narrow range and price was wicking down below it but couldn't hold it? That's the close we need below. If we get close below there, I think that is a sign that we're going to see a much stronger yen. Although I don't think it's the correct players versus the dollar, because the dollar is still going to be strong as well. 2008 crisis, the yen was stronger than the dollar, but the dollar was stronger than everything else. So I will use the US dollar, Japanese yen as a barometer for the yen. But if we lose that level, I like the yen versus other pairs. Let me see if I can pull that up. All right, here's a euro Canadian dollar. Love the chart. Love the chart. Simple, clean. All right. So you can see over here, perfect rejection, and now coming down. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I like your setup. I love your chart. Simple, clean, well defined. You gotta look for the lower lows of the time frame you're trading for the trigger. That might have already occurred if you're on the 8-hour. We could look at it together. Now the big if is what's going to happen with the markets. Now I'm making that correlation right now that we're seeing over the past few days with the euro is very tightly tied to what happens with the U.S. equity markets. They're up 0.5% this morning. They're rallying. Euro's off. Euro's off. Let's see what happens. You know, I can't imagine that the rallies are not going to be sold. You could see this trend line over here that I extended. Let me show you this, because this is interesting when things are lining up. All right, extended down this line over here, this channel, as an area to look for resistance, and it's the same line on the euro. Interesting, right? Seeing that correlation. So let me pull up though the euro Canadian dollar. I want to look at a small time frame. I want to look at the 8-hour with you. So again, there's a signal, and it's a good signal right there. You know where you're wrong right away. It's a good trade. It's a good trade. My instinct, I mean, markets are up huge now. You see that? Market's up 0.7%. I'm not looking for that to hold, right? Looks like I could be dead wrong. There's a lot of momentum there. And if the markets rally here, you got the right side of the trade, I believe. I believe the euro will definitely still come off. Let's watch that. So, what any opinions on the equities here? What's going to happen? What are you guys thinking? I'm looking for them to get sold. Let me check this out, Hanero. Here we got 60-minute Australian dollar, US dollar up here. This was the big support that we've crashed through. Exhaustion. There you go. Push phase. Exhausted. I want to look at that. Equity is now up 1%. Euro holding that support. This is the area of the interest here. Up 1%. Let's look at the Australian dollar, US dollar together. Yeah, okay, Hanero. If we get that gift of coming up and testing that support, that broken support as resistance now, that's something that everyone should be focused in on and looking for sure, for that broken support to hold as resistance and to look to position in here 100%. And again, it's a great place to play. It was very strong support. So when that broke, that's why we saw that waterfall. If we do get back up in there, it will be a place to look for a short. 6675. Hold on, you're focused much lower than I am. No, I have mine all the way at 6675. You're up here at 66635. So you're looking at the last local high as the area to focus in on. Let's keep that in there. Let's watch it together. Euro is actually hanging in there. You can see over here the support. Just look at the white line over here to the left. You can see the support, and it's got that trend line support, and it is kind of hanging in there right now. So I think, and I was really interested in talking about the yen today. So far, we're seeing a resumption off of the support. Man, I don't know what's going on with my internet connection, but I have someone coming over here at noon today to take a look at that. I believe Trump speaks at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Like magic. It's like magic the way that technical analysis works, right? Look at this TA. You guys had the resistance, but right into the resistance, right back down into the support, bouncing. Now, at 7 p.m. No, S&P. 6 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. S&P looks like it's broken up through that channel for what that channel is worth and stalling out a little bit. That's where the euro was also firming up, right? So they're both happening at the same time. Now, Trump picked a good time to speak with the markets closed, doing his best, try to boost those futures today. You know, in these type of situations, I've seen often, I don't know what he's doing. It seems to me that he's making a huge mistake here by kind of leaning in to the coronavirus, because if he's wrong and things escalate, that could be the very thing that causes him to lose his reelection bid, right? If he's telling everyone, don't worry, everything's fine, everything's okay, it's just fake news, and then all of a sudden you start seeing breakouts across the US, then he's going to look like a fool. So that seems like a mistake he's making. All right. So we're only about 20 minutes now in. Let's see if the U.S. Equities could continue their rally here. Euro looking at this line of trend line as its support. Also, a little bit of local support horizontally. Let's see if this is where the markets turn and equity starts selling off, or they continue this nice, what looks to me like a dead cat bounce, but that's a little premature. We'll see what happens. So far, the yen also weakening as we see the relief rally here in equities. Now, this was something that I was very interested in, the Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. It continues to look like a good trade, I believe, as long as 82.74 held. Let me see what happened overnight. Look at that. The low was 82.73.9. I would have put I didn't take the trade. I would have had my stop in at 82.74 if. All right. There was never a trigger. I was watching this trade. Here's the support in at 83. As long as 83 held, I was looking to put a stop in if price triggered by making a higher high at 82.74. By a tenth of a pip, I would have been stopped out. But the trade just triggers here right now at 82.20. Right. That looks like a good trade. So if I had taken this trade over here, my stop would now be right exactly where I had it at one. Point of all that is sometimes we are a little too precise with our stops and our take profits. If you see yourself price coming into your take profit and you just missing by a couple of pips your take profit and or getting stopped out by a couple of pips, the best solution is to trade a little bit smaller and move your take profit a little bit closer and your stop loss a little bit further away. Nice, Phil boy. Appreciate that. Appreciate that so much. Meanwhile, what's the JBP? What are you looking at over there? I don't have an echo, do I? Everyone in here, appreciate the love. Appreciate that very much. Again, that really does help other people get in here and see what's going on. Let me jump back into the euro. I also want to keep tracking the S&P all day long. So getting back though, this is really important. So I want to talk about it one more time with y'all. And that is the Japanese yen, as we're looking at a Japanese yen pair right here. Now, everything's looking good. When I say looking good, I mean the breakout so far has been retested and held, and now price is resuming upwards. So that's all good and solid. I don't think I think we're going to see much lower lows in the equity markets, obviously. And because of that, I think that the Japanese yen, the behavior we saw when the market sold off was that yen bid, even with the different developments happening in Japan, as far as their weaker GDP, as far as them headed towards recession. At the end of the day, it's still proving to be that safe haven currency. We saw it over the past few days. So if we see lower lows in the US equity markets, if we see the flight to safety, I think the Japanese yen will continue to be bid. And if we see that happen, once we take out on the US dollar, Japanese yen, if we take out that this support down here, that 1097, at that point, I will look versus other pairs, right? Find that weak pairs, the New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar, and look for that weakness in the Japanese yen. I'm sorry, look for that strength in the Japanese yen. Oh, Bill Boy, 100% using the true trend that all time frames. There's not a stronger time frame. That all time frames work the same. All right, market stolen out here. I wanted to pull up. Also, Hane, are you watching the Australian dollar, US dollar on that 1 hour? New Zealand dollar looks like it's got a little bit more of a bit into it. It's come into that little bit of a local resistance right there as well. Bigger ones over here. I thought so, but then I looked and I didn't see it bouncing. I'll keep that up. Because the pound has had a little bit of trouble today. Pound has had a little bit of trouble today. I mean, take a step back. This still looks quite bullish and continues to do so. It's got to lose 142 to really get concerned, and then you have a couple of big supports over here. But above 142, she's still pretty strong. She looks good overall. And I think it's right now a question of what the Japanese yen does. Canadian dollar leading versus the Japanese yen, followed by the US dollar. And, you know, Canadian dollar doing all right considering the pressure on oil. Now, Billboy, there's a different. I have a different insight as far as what is the best time frame to trade. On the using the true trend though, it does not matter what time frame you use it on. It just is not effective on one and more effective on the other. You use the same exact settings no matter what time frame you're trading, and it provides absolutely the same results, 100%. Now, obviously, and if you haven't seen it, please just go jump to in the course, Bill Boy, in the trading course, there's a section on the best time frame to trade that really goes over why I believe the 8 hour is the most beneficial. And then I did a short video over here, which I'll pull up, going over the benefits of the 8 hour. But I do believe the 8 hour is definitely offers the greatest advantage, especially if you're short time frame minded. The 8 hour is going to help you be more higher time preference minded, which is really important. Pound US dollar. Pound has had pressure today. I haven't looked at it though. So this was a false break that we all saw here above that support over here, that 1.2992. And since then, it's been rejected hard. Now, first, let me look at that on the daily. Wow, that's just ugly. It was rejected hard by that resistance over there. On the daily, you can't do anything. That's why the daily is so hard to trade. Where's your signal? It looks like you closed above the resistance on the daily. Daily is very difficult to trade. All right. Here you could at least see once you made the lower low during London that was a failed breakout and you were coming back down. So the pound looks like it's under a lot of pressure here. It's not looking good for the pound. Right? That's with the dollar being pretty strong today. Much stronger than the Australian dollar, much stronger than the New Zealand dollar. It is stronger than the euro, and it's crushing the pound. US equities continue to come off a little bit. You can see they're starting to wick down a little bit, being sold, and the euro finding that support so far. It gets below that trend line and it's broken some pretty important support. And then I would imagine we come down to test all the way down to 1.08, 14, 15, 18, that area. Gold today, selling off. That's silver. Actually, gold is actually uneven on the day, unchanged on the day. A lot of people are scared. They remember what happened during the last crisis when gold took a huge hit it took a huge hit before it exploded once QE was instated, but it's a different, it could be a different type of crisis this time. That was a liquidity crisis. This could be a central bank crisis. You didn't have, here you could see gold. This was the height of the crisis, the Lehman Brother bankruptcy, October of 2008. And you could see gold traded down 30% in a month before exploding, right? Before the Fed came in, before QE started, then gold exploded. So a lot of people are thinking that in a crisis, gold is going to also dump. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it'll dump. I don't think it'll be off 30%. I think this crisis, if we're headed towards a crisis and a global recession, with the amount of money that the central banks have pumped into the system, I think would be a crisis at this point. I think gold is going to continue to rise. That's my opinion. Oh, for whatever reason, equities didn't like that. I think the market right now is being driven by bigger factors. No one's dying, right? We're be prepared, have faith, have hope, expect the worst and hope for the best. I mean, so, but sincerely, the coronavirus, if it winds up being something of an enormous magnitude and affecting millions, then there will be an enormous amount of deaths. That's true, but even right now, kind of what the base case looks like is it really not so much the amount of death it will cause, but the amount of disruption that it's going to cause. If when like in Italy, we saw it in China, now we saw it in Italy. When communities have to go down on lockdown and isolate to prevent the spread, people can't go to work, things aren't produced, supply chains break down. I think this is the threat. I think this is the threat that we're all facing. I think this is what the markets are beginning to price in. It'll be an absolute disaster, travesty, if it were to be something worse than that, where we saw, a pandemic that was actually wiping out a portion of the population. I hope to God that's not the case. So, Martin, you were asking a question over here. So, Jordan, Martin, you don't have to ever ask. You could always ask anything. So the question was, though, do we trade instant execution or with pending orders? I always trade with pending orders, right? If you find yourself entering at market, you're probably over trading, and you probably need to stop over trading. But pending orders are how I trade. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, I have to have hope in humanity, though, and unfortunately, it's not that the people all over the world. There's so many great, good people. Uh, Unfortunately, the powers that be are not really that way. And unfortunately, if there is any type of crisis, we won't be able to count on our governments for help as much as the local people, I'm sure, will come together. All right, we're kind of stalled out here a little bit. Let's see. It look. I mean, if we close right again, not a good sign. Let's see what the markets do here. All right. Now, why that's happening? Because I want to keep a watch on how the yen reacts. I'm definitely aware that the euro right now is tracking the equity markets. It's just right now it's just tightly correlated like that. I want to see the yen also if it's doing the same. Oil is now selling off further. You could see as the equities come down here, that euro's rising, and it looks like the same exact things happening on the yen. As equities come off, the yen firms. As far as bigger picture on the U.S. equities on the S&P right here, I think that this is a big area down here at 30.22, and I think that's an area that if that gives way, then we start seeing a much bigger sell-off. How far has the sell-off been? It's only been about 5%. No, it's not much of anything yet, right? Once we start getting 10-15%, that's when it starts becoming more of an event. So right now I'd say everything's pretty much under control. So I'm not sure if there was any news on the pound causing that pound weakness. Or if it was just technical in nature. No, I don't see anything specifically. So back to gold and silver. The reason I was talking about what happened during the last crisis is because, again, people are looking for them to come off if we do enter another type of crisis. So if we get another leg down, when we get another leg down on the equity markets, it'll be interesting to see what gold and silver do in response to that. But overall, they look like buying opportunities. I mean, once the Fed starts lowering rates, and they're going to lower rates, the market's then going to push them for more. Everything's in a holding pattern right now. How has the euro been versus the Japanese yen? What I'm curious is, as we've seen equity sell off, euro strength, Japanese yen strength, which of the two has been stronger? Nice heads up, Hanero. Oil currently trading below 50. So the yen was clearly stronger than the euro the last few days. Markets are kind of quiet, eerily quiet right now. Bitcoin's still under pressure. Let's take a look along these altcoins because they are due for a pump. Start with Litecoin. Litecoin usually leads on the way up. Right now, it's leading on the way down. It's got bigger support down here at 57, but it's coming into a big area of interest down here, a few dollars down. So it's getting towards definitely this area of supply, and it looks like it's going to hold. They're actually coming into it right now. EOS. EOS also coming down to this area of support right over here. You could see this was the support. It broke. It was now the resistance. Price came back down, jumped off there, and is now testing it again. This also looks like an area where it should hold, and we should see a rebound in these altcoins. Same exact thing. Everything's now coming into an area of support. Doesn't look so good there though. Ethereum. Market's rallying. This looks pretty bad. It looks like the weakest of the bunch, but you could see again, it's coming into this area of support. This was resistance. It's a big area and it's coming into it right now. So I'm looking for a big bounce here on the alts. Otherwise, Bitcoin, yeah, I'm looking for a bounce here on the alts. No, I mean, Hanera, I don't. I I definitely see. Of course, it looks weak right now. I think that it's going to actually wind up closing back into this blue box today. If it doesn't, and we close outside of it, I think then this area between 82, and I don't think we lose 82. I do not think that we lose 82. Um, but this area between 85 and 82, I think will be bought up. I do not think that we lose 82. Now you're looking down here towards right 6.8 to 7.6. Listen, if we traded down to there, and if we traded down there, Hanero, honestly, we would be trading pretty fairly below fair value for Bitcoin, according to the stock to flow model, and that close going into the halving. If that did happen, it would be very, very brief. I don't think it will. I don't think we lose 82. I don't think Bitcoin is actually even. Let me step back on the daily. Where my mouse is exactly where you're looking, Hanero. Um, and I again, I think if we hit down to 82, um, there's a whole bunch of people looking to come in there. And if yeah, I mean, if that didn't hold, um, then the area you're looking at would be a gift. But I just don't foresee it happening personally. We're only off about, I would say, about 11, 12% off of the most recent high. But we did come off from this high over here about 50%, right? And then after that, um, I think it's unusual to have such another steep pullback. Then we had this 30% decline from 10,000 back down to here. I think that again, I think Bitcoin's going to close back up in this box today. If it doesn't, for sure, we're going to see probably closer down to 85, 82. 85 is very light. I have it marked as light. 82 is the number. I don't think we lose 82. I use stop orders. I use stop orders because the way that I trade, I'm looking to enter when price makes, when buying a higher high, or when selling a lower low. Look at that. Equity is shaking it off back towards the highs of the day. As they're doing that, Euro's holding. Definitely. It looks to me like Trump has got Secretary Mnuchin and the pledge protection team bidding up the market. So where can I find the chart? Narrow. Oh, I have it right here. Hold on. Ah, sorry, I'm having the dangest time trying to pull that up for you. Give me 1 second, please. Let's try this one more time. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. This is what I'm focused on, Hanero. And you could see here, this is the months to the next halving. Right over here, this is 5 months away. We're 2 months away. We're right over here where it gets dark blue, right? You could see over here in the past halving cycles what happens as you're dark blue. Move this away. You could see this is the dark blue area here. You see the red. Here's the dark blue area. We did see this is the halving between the blue and the red right over here. And we did see over here a 30% drawdown between this blue and this red. But price was trading at this time higher than expected. Right now, price is trading at fair value. It's not trading higher. If we were trading towards, between 14,000 and 16,000, I would expect within 30 days of the halving, we saw a big drawdown. But I don't see that happening right now. So trying to just take away the normal price fluctuations, right? As we enter this period of blue into the red, right? The odds are extraordinarily stacked in the favor of higher Bitcoin prices. So that's what I'm focused in on, because the bigger picture between when we do turn red in 2 months and as we get towards orange, is a much bigger reward than the possible downside over here right now. Martin, thank you. Appreciate you. Always. Have a great night. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care, man. I do you just want to include this link in the chat then, Hanero, because it is a very interesting graph. And just the other thing I want to point out on the flip side to the downside, once you get to 30 months to the halving, right, which is right about here and right about here, until we get to dark green. Dark green is 15 months out, right? Shorting Bitcoin between those 2 months is also something that seems pretty solid and pretty clear, right? From 30 months to 15 months out, from where you get from orange to yellow to dark green, orange to yellow to dark green, right? So as much as you want to hold from where we are today, turning red, dark blue turning red, that's the area where you definitely do not want to be holding Bitcoin. Now we're seeing the euro maintaining a bid here as the markets are making new highs, and they are. What else are we looking at today, everybody? What else is anyone focused in on, or does anyone want to take a look at, or what type of themes are you all keying into The Heath uh, Heath and has provided some really good charts in the Telegram group overnight. Blair shared some really interesting information about the Andrews pitchforks. Steve has been all over the short New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar. What other themes you guys focused in on? If anyone cares to discuss right now. Otherwise, today is Ash Wednesday. It's 40 days till Easter. This is a period of of really focusing in on prayer, on fasting and almsgiving. And today's kind of like the day we use to set the tone for the next 40 days of that. And so I was thinking of doing with the kids, maybe going out and preparing some food that we could bring to the homeless, things like that. Euro is bid here. Look at this. But either which way, today I will be going headed over to Mass. But anyone has got something they want to talk about, I'm all about it. But Hinera, I mean, you're seeing the technical solid, and Bitcoin's been trading very technical. Stick with it. Do that. I'm just trying to give the perspective I'm looking at where we are in time in relation to the 4-year cycle, in relation to the halving. Back over 50. Back over 50. Ripple is way down, and Ripple could rip to the upside, but it looks to me the alts are in a position here where they could really pump. They've come off high and hard. They've all come down into areas of support, and unless Bitcoin dumps hard, let's see. So many of my friends are fan and invested in XRP. I, however, am not. No, I mean, they almost all are. You got it right. Look, we got Litecoin down 11, EOS down 9, Ethereum down 7.5, XRP down 7.5. I mean, they're getting all beat up really bad. You're on the money, Bill Boy. So, U.S. equity markets acting like Donald Trump is right. Let's see. Obviously, I'm under the impression that any rallies will be sold in the near term. Now, always one for a good conspiracy. It's been my impression since the day Donald Trump was elected that during the course of his presidency, they would try to take down the markets. So, uh, what will the Fed do will be interesting. This is hilarious. Let me pull this up for you. This is hilarious. In 2000, so the past 20 years, we've seen pretty epic gains in the equity markets. Fortune magazine put together the top list of 10 companies that would outperform in the decade to come. This is their percent since Nokia down 78%, Nortel done, bankrupt, Enron done, bankrupt, Oracle minus 11%, Broadcom minus 55, Viacom minus 24. Look, Morgan Stanley down 80%. I was talking about the banks getting crushed, and Genentech was the only one up 27%. Imagine they had bought just Apple and Amazon. Dominic, to be honest, Jess, I'll give you those details on that conspiracy. To be honest, I've always thought that Secretary Munchkin absolutely does. Right? He had what is it, 100 million in offshore accounts. He's got some inside information. Do I think Trump does? I don't know. I don't think so. But I do think the possibility of some people close to him do, for sure. As far as details, Jesse, on that conspiracy, I mean, so basically it goes like this: that for sure the powers that be do not want, and when I speak of powers that be, it's the elites, whoever runs, all these international organizations that do run the world, all the people that meet in Davos, the IMF, the UN, and the World Bank, and the people that run the Federal Reserve. They do not like Will Ferrell. They do not like having Donald Trump president, and they've wanted a Mount. We've seen it with the Mueller investigation. We've seen it with the impeachment process. We've seen it with the media, 100% against him. Love him or hate him, it's obvious to anyone that there is a conspiracy against the president of the United States. And, being that the Federal Reserve actually is the basically owned and run by these people, the only way they could not get him elected would be to crash the markets. If you look what's happening right now with the markets and the repo and all the money that's being added, all they have to do to crash the market is pull away that liquidity, and the markets will crash. So we'll watch what happens. Let's see what they do. Let's see if they actually do take away that money. That will crash the markets on purpose. After feeding all that extra money over the past 6 months, to crash it would be so easy. Or or are they going to go ahead and they're going to cut rates towards zero and institute QE before the election? If they did that, then I'm dead wrong, right? But it looks to me, or I think it's highly possible that what's happening is that they will look to take down the markets. And it would be different if I was just saying that now. I said that since the day he's elected. It's easy to blame if the markets fall that, oh, they did this in order to get him out, but it's clear to see, love him or hate him, which obviously people are split 50-50. It's clearly obvious to see that there is and has been since the day he's elected a strong conspiracy against him, and we'll see what happens. I could see why talking about Trump, we got a bunch of people who, first of all, got a thumbs down, a bunch of people walking out. I don't really care, to be honest. I'm here to work with whoever wants to work with me. And if I'm a seeker of truth. I'm not someone who is tightly tied to any political party because I don't think that any party works for the people. And if someone is supportive of any type of agenda where that doesn't sit well with them, then I prefer you leave anyway. Actually, I prefer you hit the thumbs down before you leave and then get out of here, and please don't come back. I'm only interested in truth. I'm not someone who's like, oh, I hate Donald Trump because he works for the Russians. Come on. Coco, what are you focused in on today? Markets for the last 15 minutes have been eerily quiet, which leads me to believe that we are setting up here for a big move. Hanero, if we close back and regain this area of support over here, if we go on to make higher highs, then I think that it's always hard when you come down into the support, then it's holding. All right. Just watch that. Definitely very bearish bias here right now to Bitcoin. And you can see that after going ahead and making all these higher lows, holding that trend line, finally we started making lower highs, broke the trend line, and now Bitcoin's looking to see where it could stabilize. Tesla is still holding in there, right? Speaking of giving up trend lines, it looks like it's given up this one a little bit. If we could zoom in here a little bit. I'm a big fan of Square. They run the Cash App. Square is Jack Dorsey's company, the CEO of Twitter and Square. And obviously Jack is a big fan of Bitcoin. Actually, if you go look at his Twitter profile, the reason I bring that up though, here we go. Ooh, wow, you're going for the Euro Swiss franc long. San Francisco has gone ahead and instituted a state of emergency. Now, the first city in the United States to do this, and I have to be honest, I feel like that was done because of Nancy Pelosi, and obviously it's Trump. Trump first closed the flights out of China, and Nancy complained that this was the wrong thing to do. It was absolutely terrible. And then, he went ahead and asked for $2.5 billion of funding to prepare and fight for the coronavirus. And she's like, well, that's not enough money, and you didn't ask soon enough. So no matter what the president does, he's, obviously he can't do anything right. He's right about that. He's 100% right about that. I think he's wrong about the need to prepare for the coronavirus and it being fake news. But I think he's right about whatever he does or say, that the opposition is going to have a problem with it. No one's working for the American people. It's absolutely disgusting. And I feel like probably Nancy pressured the mayor of San Francisco to go ahead and institute the state of emergency to make it seem like San Francisco, where she comes from, is ahead of the president on it. So I feel like it's all game, but there have been no confirmed cases in or around San Francisco yet of the coronavirus. Jack, this is Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Square, right? Bitcoin of Twitter. Look at his profile on Twitter. Bitcoin, right? So Jack's Square app is actually which you could buy Bitcoin on. They are quarter over quarter. It's exponentially growing the amount of Bitcoin being purchased on the Square app. And as now the supply of Bitcoin gets cut in half in 2 months, and instead of 12 and a half Bitcoin, there's 6.5 Bitcoin every 10 minutes rewarded to miners. It's possible next year that the purchases on Square app alone cover the supply of Bitcoin being created. Think about that. Mima, I didn't take the Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. If I did take it, what I was watching here, the reason why because I was watching this not last night, I was watching this the day before. So this is the London session here. This is Asia. This is New York. This is London. I was watching the trade over here, looking for an entry over here or over here, as long as this support held. And then specifically with the stop, actually, I would have got stopped out by 1/10 of a pip. I was going to put my stop in at 82.74. We traded down to 82.739. But the trade just triggered here during this session here, and I still think it's valid. I would have my stop in at the exact same space, except now a little bit below there. And but I didn't take the trade because I was looking for it to occur about 24 hours earlier, and it never triggered. It never triggered. U.S. equities now up 1.25%. Again, I still think it's a dead cat bounce. No sellers coming in yet today. Let's take a look at the euro Swiss francs. Who is coming in there? Coco, I'll look at that in a second. I'm almost there with you. I'm short on the Australian dollar, Swiss franc. Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, so just to point out, even with the euro bid against the dollar and everything else over the past few days, this has not gone anywhere. Swiss franc is strong. Swiss franc has been the strongest currency. Um, you are seeing the last 3 days a bit of a wicks down here, but oof, this is very, very, very counter trend, and there's a good reason why the Swiss franc continues to gain versus the euro. Um, so maybe you're seeing. Be careful here. It's very dangerous buying bottoms, picking bottoms. Right? It's the easier trade is always looking for the retrace and selling off of resistance. Be very careful down here. Now, Coco, you're short here. Australian dollar, Japanese yen, and you're on the verge of breaking down below the support over here. Let's take a look. We were definitely taking a look at the yen today and talking about if we lose this support over here, right? Then look down here at the lows, right? We could be falling much further. We're at a pretty important area right here, and it looks like that could continue breaking down. Now we've been watching here for a turn in the yen, but the markets are trading up now, gaining momentum and steam. But what I'm looking for here on the yen, we had the breakout, we've tested successfully, and now we're headed back up. So as long as that continues, we're looking for a weak yen. At any time we do trade back down, I do expect that we see some lower lows here on the U.S. equity markets, and if and when that occurs, I think we're going to see some further Japanese yen strength. Once we take out this area of 1097, I want to be looking to buy yen, and I won't do that versus the dollar, but I will versus. And again, we were talking about the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar as places to jump in on. Yeah, but I think that was 100% political play, and that's what this. I also remember living in New York City when Mayor Bloomberg was running for re-election, and I think it was 2003, and he went ahead and said there's going to be an imminent terrorist attack. And I remember all the subway entrances, there were police with German shepherds, and it was scary. You know, we had just been through 9/11, and it was really scary. Maybe it was 2002. And then it turned out he was lying, that he was doing that as a way to get reelected. DC came out 6 months later and said there was no threat of any type of terrorist attack at that point. And it's kind of what Nancy's doing right now, playing games, and that's not cool. You know, I wait for a leader of any country that puts people first. And you know what? I've always been and continue to be a big fan of Putin, and it's because Putin is really has done a lot of things to really help his country. So this is good. I mean, generally don't like to really talk about politics with people. I definitely have strong opinions that I form. I don't really like to talk about it, but I do like talking about it here right now because it'll do a good job of weeding out people that I really don't want to in here anyway. So that's all good. Like if you offend easily, this is not the place for you. Not that we ever go out of the way to offend anyone. It's absolutely opposite. But a big seeker of truth. Yeah, I don't think Putin is a good person at all. I like the way that he put his country first and is doing what is best for his country. I wish that growing up in America and seeing continually the country and its people sold out to the elites and globalists is nice to see a leader of a country who's and believe me, I do not think that he is a good person on any level. What I'm saying is he does things and makes moves that will benefit his country and his people. And I think that's what a leader of a country should do. Yeah, if you trigger easily, right? If you're soft, you just equity markets continue to rise. Euro was holding; it's coming off now a little bit. At the same time, this is the area I'm watching. This trend line. Swiss franc remains strong even with the equities up. Where do you think they're going next? Yeah, I just enjoy having conversations that are not emotional, where people could actually share different points of views. I mean, it's the best way to learn by hearing other people's views, but not getting emotional about them. Euro New Zealand dollar. Euro's been stronger than both the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar, which continue to be the weakest currencies here. This looks like this is getting ready to resume upwards over here. Let's see how far though we are. I'm going to pull up the true trend here to see you get. I think we're very overbought. Yeah, you could see that we remain pretty overbought over here. So careful about taking a new position to the long side up at these levels. Now, of course, overbought could remain overbought for an extended period of time as oversold. It's just it happens. It doesn't happen as often as you see back and forth and chop. But here's an area between here and here where we stayed overbought for a long time. Okay, so Wilford, that's a very good. Let's jump over to that. Let's take a look at the euro US dollar. And you feel like you said you're a little bit early. Now, Blair in the Telegram group this morning talked about that. This is the wrong pair. So that the euro US dollar should actually peak at 1.09. And he called it to the tick. Look, we got up to 1.097. Called it to the tick. That would have been a great place to short, obviously, in hindsight, as we've now peaked down. But I do think this trend line right here, Wilford, is very relevant. And I think the safer place to short would be on a break of that trend line. And with the euros is holding up. Is holding up. Right or wrong, both myself and Hanero are looking for little bit lower lows here on the DXY. DXY bounced today off this area finally, but I'm looking for some lower lows over here personally. I saw a lot of sell signals from different banks on the euro US dollar yesterday with targets of like 105 and 104. And while I do believe those targets will come into play, it's just a little bit interesting their timing of issuing those calls. It's almost as if they're trying to get out of a position. So I don't know. Definitely intermediate term, I'm looking for that stronger dollar. I just, right now we're consolidating, holding that trend line. Gold was also yesterday. The 10-year, I assume, was moving up with gold moving down. I think gold yesterday just acted a little off, meaning, I think they came in and sold a lot of paper. Over in this bar here, you could see it. They sold like an abnormal. There was an article on Zero Hedge, an abnormal amount of paper gold over here. It looks like they came in and did it over here, and they're just trying to knock that price down a little bit. It appears to me. Again, I think during the things that are the situation shaping up, I don't even want to call it a crisis yet, is that gold will continue to appreciate in value, even though, of course, the debate is if there is a liquidity crisis, will gold also fall as people need to access that liquidity? And then will it be after QE is reinstated that gold rises? I mean, long term, by long term, I mean over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months. Um, is there anyone who doesn't want to own silver at these prices? It's still got a lot of overhead resistance, but once it gets past 20 and then 21, once it gets past 21, there's not a lot holding it back at all. At all. Yeah, it was very interesting to see, Wilford, during the outbreak in Italy, that the euro strengthened, and what we saw was the equities really selling off. So let's watch what happens. The equities sell off. What the euro is going to do, but during that period of the sell off, where people would think we would see a stronger dollar, we weren't seeing that. Jesse, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Listen, the truth is this. I sincerely don't mean to offend anyone. um, especially people that have been active with us, because to me that they're family, right? So that would be sad if anyone is was, but nothing was said that is offensive, right? And truly, I want to create an environment where anything that needs to be talked about could be talked about and discussed. If it affects the markets in any way, we need to be able to talk about it, right? And strong opinions are okay, right? Um, you know, for example, Hernero says, "Hey, I support Bernie." That's awesome, right? Uh, that that does not offend me whatsoever, right? Personally, I believe in capitalism, and I believe that socialism is very dangerous. But that is absolutely nothing to do with mine and Hernero's relationship whatsoever, right? And that's the way it needs to be. So, right, if people want to hear the name Trump mentioned, or the fact that that I believe that there are people against him, as you've seen through the Mueller investigation, through the impeachment process, through the negative coverage of the major media companies, through if people could get offended by that, then I'm sorry, but Jesse has nothing to do with you at all, and really no big deal. If there's 20 of us in here that are able to work together, and then that's awesome, right? Or if there's 300, and as long as we can maintain the same level of communication, then that's awesome also. Australian dollar, Japanese yen does look like it is on the verge of breaking down. I think if you get that kick, that sell off in the equities, it's really going to push it down. And then I don't know that it's just stops being taken out. If we see the US dollar, Japanese yen ultimately fail, if we see that breakdown in the yen ultimately fail, let me pull that up. We had this big breakdown, and if this fails, there could be usually what happens is a lot of traders get trapped, and then the move to the other side could be pronounced. So I can't imagine being a buyer of the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. I can't imagine, right? But it would be nice to see not only stops triggered, but to see a waterfall. I have to say, I also, as far as a choice between the Canadian dollar, Swiss franc, US dollar, look, I think that I personally believe the US dollar ultimately is going to be continuing to strengthen. Right now, it's not versus the euro, which you're seeing in the dollar index, but it is very much and has continued versus the commodity currencies. And, um, obviously, the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar have been the weakest of those, but the charts are telling the story here of this breakout, right? And then you're seeing it today, right now. We expect much lower oil prices. The global economy is slowing down. There's a lot of pressure here on the Canadian dollar, and I expect that the dollar is continue to strengthen here. No, maybe I'm wrong. It looks like I have offended a lot of people. I'm sorry. I do apologize. That was not my intention. Bitcoin bleeding right now. All right, everyone. I think this is a good place to end it for the day. Um, Again, it is what it is, but I appreciate all of you. That's truly the truth. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow.